So we're into Acts chapter 21. And as we said last time, Paul is now heading very intentionally towards Jerusalem. But on his way, he seems to be doing a bit of a farewell tour. He's going around visiting Christians, encouraging them, talking to them, and saying some quite emotional goodbyes. And we see on one occasion, this prophet Agabus comes to see Paul, and he takes Paul's belt and he ties it around his own hands and feet. And he says, in this way, the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem will bind the owner of this belt and will hand him over to the Gentiles. He's telling Paul, like, this is what's going to happen to you. The Jewish leaders are going to bind you up and then they're going to hand you over to the Romans. And so obviously the believers are worried about this. They're scared for Paul. But Paul's like, stop crying. Stop breaking my heart about this. I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die in Jerusalem. He is ready to die for his faith. And they can't talk him out of it. So they agree, like, if that's what you really believe God is saying, if that's what you believe you should be doing, then we need to support you in that. So Paul carries on his travels. And when he gets to Jerusalem, there's this tension that's been going on between Jewish believers and Jewish non-believers and Gentiles. And it's all got really complicated because basically the Christians who were Jewish believed that you still needed to do all of the stuff in the Old Testament. They were still trying to follow all of these religious laws that they'd been given by God, as well as lots of extra rules that they tried to keep to try and help themselves to keep these rules. And that was really, really important to them. So the Jewish people were like, this is really, really important. And they believed that keeping to those Old Testament rules and regulations were the way to have a relationship with God. And obviously Paul's going around telling people about Jesus, saying actually it is through the grace of God, it is through Jesus dying on the cross for us that we get to have a relationship with God. And that means that it's not just for the Jewish people, it's for everybody. So that was really offending the Jewish people, that actually Paul was going around preaching to Gentiles, preaching to people that in their minds had no right having a relationship with God. But also it was confusing them because they were saying that these Gentile believers, these people who hadn't been brought up in the Jewish tradition, didn't need to keep all of the Jewish laws. And so then they thought that Paul had been saying that the Jewish people didn't need to keep the Jewish laws, and they were completely outraged about that. Whereas actually what they'd landed on is, if you've been brought up Jewish, you should carry on keeping these rules, but know that your relationship with God is through Christ. Your relationship with God is through the forgiveness that we have through Jesus. But if you haven't grown up in that, you don't need to worry about all that stuff because your relationship with God is through Christ. It is because Jesus died for you that you get to have a relationship with God, not through keeping a whole load of rules and regulations. And they talked about this, and they say that actually they've sent a letter to the Gentile believers, to the believers that weren't Jews already, saying that actually what they don't need to worry about all of the details of the laws, but it'd be really helpful if they abstain from food sacrificed to idols, from blood, from the meat of strangled animals, and from sexual immorality. They're basically saying you don't need to worry about all the religious detail, but do the basic stuff that we see as keeping you pure, out of respect for God and out of respect for your fellow believers. And but as part of this conversation, they agree that Paul and some others are going to go through this purification ritual, almost as a sign of, hey, look, we are proper Jewish people still. We're not disrespecting you. We're still following all the rules. But whilst doing this, Paul is in the temple and everyone kicks off at him. They're all saying, that's that guy that's telling everyone that you don't have to keep all the laws. That's the guy who's leading everybody astray. We don't like him. We're really mad with him. And they kick him out of the temple. But not only that, they beat him up. In fact, the Bible says, as they were trying to kill him. Like, the Jewish people were trying to kill Paul for the message that he had been preaching, or at least their misunderstanding of it. So it all kicks off to such an extent. It says like the whole of Jerusalem is in uproar. So the Roman leaders are like, what is going on? We need to go and sort this out. So the Roman armies comes down to deal with this whole hoo-ha about Paul, and they arrest him. And then when they ask what's going on, they can't get a straight answer from the people about what the problem is. So they decide to take him away to deal with it. But as Paul is being taken away, it's almost like he has this moment of, ooh, a crowd. This is a preaching opportunity. So instead of being like scared for his life scary being arrested by Romans, but oh, actually maybe the Romans are going to actually keep me from getting beaten to death by these other people. He's like, crowd, let me speak to you. And I wonder if we would do that. Do we actually see the opportunities in every situation we come across? When people misunderstand us and have a go at us, are we like, opportunity to share the goodness of God and tell people about Jesus? Or are we like, it's not fair, I don't like it, I'm just going to give as good as I get. If they have a go at me, I'm going to have a go at them? Or do we say, let me share with you the hope that I have in Jesus? Now, that whole next little preach of Paul's takes up much of the next chapter, so we'll have a look at that then. But just be thinking, in the situations you get yourself into, in the conversations you have, in the places you end up, are you ready and willing to speak about your faith? And we'll see what Paul says next time.